Welcome everyone to another English approved episode for Lyrical Monasterio this time, which is coming out in a couple of days. If you guys don't know what English approved means, usually we make preliminary deck lists just before the Japanese release come out to give people an idea on what to play in their decks for the upcoming set. And then when English rolls around, which is usually after the Japanese release, like after a while, so we have a lot of time to look at results, playtest decks. I give you an English approved list, so you're much more ahead of the curve, right? Ahead of the curve. These lists are better than the ones before, usually, and you can hit the ground running at an updated speed, right? Faster, more flashier, right? So, funnily enough, for Lyrical Monasterio, a lot of these decks just are built by themselves. In like, you just look at the cards. This supports this. Just plug it in. And you're good to go. So finally, a lot of these decks didn't actually change. So I'm gonna kind of point out the little intricacies in why we chose some of these card choices for the deck versus other cards. While like the less powerful versions of Ride Lines in the Monasterio, they're just kind of a mess, to be honest. We're just chucking a lot of things and trying to make it work. But you can easily tell which ones are currently very strong or the stronger decks just by how they just build themselves, maybe except for Alestiel, right? Maybe except for that. But also, some of these decks, well, these card lists are up on Decklog now, though I think they are missing a few cards. So until they fix that up, some of these decks are in the Japanese Decklog. But the first one we have, Loronerol, which is, I finally learned how to say the name, even though it sounds very weird. This one's just fully featured in the English decklog, so you can check this out. I will be posting the decklog links below, and will be posting a link to my past video, just in the description below as well, because I will refer to that one for something, some of these deck lists, right? So first off, yeah, Loronerol. This one just one of those build yourself kind of decks, very strong. This is basically the strongest deck in the entire set, I think, right? And has a big contention to be in like tier 1. Most of these decks just look the same, right? The only change from pretty much this list and the previous list is that we can't run 11 crits anymore, so we had to cut some crits for some draws, which is perfectly fine because you still kind of want to draw cards, just draw pieces, right? So that's good. Right, that's generally pretty good. Now, the order lineup, we're just running 4-3-1. You always want to run one of this romantic happiness, just because it's the one that you can certainly kind of just draws a card at some point. So it's just nice. It's just nice. But your main orders are just the Matter Red Runaway. Looks like it should be autumn, right? It should be autumn. And then you got winter here, which is 6-Flower Fractal. So this is just the combos that will like make your Loro very powerful, give crit, restand your field, etc. So just the good stuff that's been working on. The only real interesting thing here is that we're running 4 of this grade 2. Now Audrey, right? There's a clone of this card at the grade 1 line, but they're both 8k, and they both get 5k. Which is just so it hits a nice 13 number, right? And you think maybe I want to run the grade 1 instead because it's a boost. And if you look at this deck is clearly lacking quite a few boosts, right? We're on 3 of her, Willista, which is fine. She's an 11k booster, all right? That's good, right? It hits over that 10k number, so it hits numbers. But apart from that, we literally run no boosters, right? The rest of it is just draws, crits, or heals, right? So ideally you do want to run that grade 1, but the key difference here is that Audrey only requires 1 card in your order zone, while the other one requires 2, which means that you can push with this at grade 2, but you can't push with the other one at grade 2, right? So because by the time you're on grade 2, you only have 1 card in your order zone pretty much, right? Because unless you've somehow drawn into the multiple orders, then it's good times. But ideally from your ride line, it's only when the grade 2 rides on top of the grade 1 you can search for the romantic happiness, and that's when you get 1 order, and then your grade 2s work, but your grade 1 doesn't. So that's a key thing. One of the biggest weaknesses of this deck is that you can get rushed down. The deck doesn't really go online until like later on, but having the grade 2 here that hits 13k means you can just like beat up things, right? Opponent commits a field, you can beat it up, you can attack the Vanguard, pressure on, So your Laura has your grade 3 Laura has a bigger chance to kill your opponent. The other thing here is that, you know, this grade 2 Elma, she gets huge amounts of shit. If you know Brody, right? This is like Brody on steroids and also looking very cat girly, right? She gets 5k shield for each of your card in your auto zone. So this is going to scale up hugely. She's going to become a huge shield, but also kind of don't fret on like committing her early, because she does work on an intercept. Her wording makes it so it does work on intercept, and she kind of stays as like a target for your opponent to bash, because they look at that and go, I don't want that to just easy intercept me for like, you know, my big attack, so I have to attack into it. So if you like commit it early, you can use it to put on pressure, as well as like diverting attacks from your Vanguard and kind of letting you get to that point where your Vanguard starts hitting with crit and just guard restrict and your opponent can't do anything about it. So, you know, that's also a good way to, just a good card to push with. But apart from that, the rest of the deck is just very straightforward and just easier play and very, very strong. So definitely one deck to look out for. The next deck we're actually going to look at is Alestiel. Again, there hasn't been much changes with this deck at all, apart from removing 3 crits and putting 3 fronts. We are running the white wings because the white wing is just better wing, right? It's just the better wing. The black wing, unfortunately, just doesn't really work well. There is a grade 2 that people run, a black wing that does let you fix your grade. But here we already have a few cards that do help us fix our grade. Ideally, when you're on grade 3 and you keep on rewriting, or you do want to keep on rewriting, you just have Elkiel just give you both wings for all the time and just win. But if your grades get messed up, we do have Bibuel, which can change your grade. Ideally, like your only missed target here is like the 0, like hitting a trigger into the blind zone. So, you know, if that happens, then use Bibuel to make it a 1 and get your white wings active. We also run the grade 1 Miel that lets us get back the Bibuel in those dicey situations, so that can also help fix our grade up as well, and it like can get back the win con as well, right? Erumiel is the one that just gives everything crit, so ideally your whole field is just odds, and then you go bam, everything crit, your opponent gets stuck on 4, and then if you need her again, you can use Bibuel's, not Bibuel, you can use Miel's effect to get it back. So this is like a multi-purpose card. Her power is actually just not very good. It's 7k, so it doesn't hit any numbers of anything pretty much. But she is basically just utility. Right? Her best spot is probably behind Vanguard, and just, you know, because your Vanguard really doesn't hit any good numbers unless it's boosted by something like a Malubuel, which is like a 15k boost here. She's just a good utility. Fixes your problems or fixes your win condition. The grade 2 does also help you fix your problems, but it is a grade 2, remember, so it's like more missed targets for your binds, for your Alestiel. And that's pretty much the rest. I don't think this deck really has changed much at all, right? You got your win con, you got your fixes, you got your win con, and then your booster, and then bigger shield. That's kind of it. And then just trigger lined up, so cool. Now we move on to Clarissa. Now Clarissa is also one of those bigger decks, but actually more affected probably by the 11 crit change, because now you have to run fronts, and although, like, you know, Laura can kind of get away with just like, you know, running draws, Clarissa really appreciated the 11 crit because it was already very bulky and very grindy deck, so just having the crits really helped. The key thing in this deck is you run the ride line, you run 4 of the order that works with Clarissa, and then you run every single Earnscorrect card at 4, and then a perfect guard at 4, and your deck is pretty much done. You have 3 slots that you can work with. What I chose was the grade 2 Ilda. She basically lets you bounce a card, so it can, like, you know, save your cards. It's pretty cool, you know, especially against landed. And then you run 2 of the 30k shield orders. You just have to take a damage this turn, and then you can use this, and it's a 30k shield. So just nice and bulky. But apart from that, the rest of the deck really hasn't changed. You just multi-attack. Well, not really multi-attack. Well, you can multi-attack because one of your grade 2s does multi-attack, and then your Clarissa just kind of beats everything up. Just bear in mind, though, against very smart players, right? If you attack with your multi-attacker, which is a Kairi, I think, your opponent can just like intercept things and then like guard, and then you can't really hit much. Or, you know, if what they only have is like a front row, right? If you attack with this and they just intercept their front row and they guard your Vanguard, then it's kind of like a waste, right? It's a bit of a waste, and you don't get like your multi-hits in with Clarissa. So you just have to keep that in mind. If your opponent has like a bunch of boosters in the back row and they can't intercept, that's safe, right? That's safe. Your Clarissa will definitely hit like 3 targets. But yeah, just bear in mind they can just intercept because they aren't being attacked, right? When Clarissa attacks, you can choose those intercepts so they can't intercept, and, you know, they have to suck it up. But if you attack with just countering first, they can do that, and then sorry, you just wasted your order, right? Kind of just wasted your order, and you're not getting those draws that you really want. So just a little thing to worry about. Moving on, we have Felty Rosa. Now Felty Rosa is kind of this. It's kind of funny, right? There's a few ways to build this deck, but it ends up kind of being the same. One of the cool things that really popped up has been the Willista ride chain. Unfortunately, Willista herself is just not very good, right? It's not great, but the ride chain is actually not bad, and especially when you look at Felty Rosa's ride chain, it's kind of counterproductive in what it wants to do. This deck consumes a lot of soul. It consumes heaps of soul, and the ride line for Felty Rosa, the pure one, does use up soul, so it's kind of counterproductive in that sense. However, the Willista ride line, it gives you soul, right? So the grade 1 Willista lets you put a card from your hand into your soul, and then it searches for the gem, right? And the red gem puts itself into soul, so that's just fixing some of your soul issues. But at the same time, this also lets you dig cards. It draws 2, and then you pick one and put into soul, right? Oh no, discard it, and then you put this into soul. So it lets you dig for your Persona Ride, which is huge, right? This deck is a big multi-attack deck, but it wants to multi-attack under Persona Ride to double dip into that power, and that's how you basically win games. The amount of power you generate and with attacks just overwhelms the opponent. There is a choice that people choose between like running the grade 2 Felty Rosa or the grade 2 Willista. I personally prefer the grade 2 Willista just because I like to draw that extra card. Like the extra card, like let's just dig into a Persona Ride, right? Or just dig into a piece, which is cool. But the other people like to stack the top of the deck with a ghost, with a grade 2 Felty Rosa. That's really up to them. I think it's personally down to preference. But apart from that, yes, we still run heavy draw just to like dig into more cards. I think last time people asked, why don't you run this girl, right? This is just when it comes out during the battle phase, you put it to soul and draw a card. This is a disagreement between like me and Kelvin. Kelvin actually really hates this card, right? Well, I don't really mind the card because it does solve our soul problem. But he just doesn't like it because when you call it out, you do want to just, although you do get a card and a soul, you do have to use another counterblast to get another drive check, which again is like a counterblast heavy deck. But I kind of compromised, I guess, because now your soul problem is kind of remedied by this ride line. But you know, she's still a decent card, so I've decided to put it in, because another thing, there's just not that many good cards to run anyway. That's just the reality. There's not that many good cards to run. So just put some of this running. I know some people choose between running like 1 gem or running 2. I run 2 just for the safety, and if I draw it later on, that's fine. You know, just use it. Just get more soul, right, and dig more. It does count as a miss though for your Felty Rosa skill, right? So now you have like, you trigger a trigger or a null or one of these gems. There should only be 1 in the deck at maximum because of the ride line. Then you do kind of miss. You do miss. And just again, remember, be sure that you clear out. You have cards that like cleared themselves out, because running something like this ghost, although she's nice, she gives something like 5k, so it hits like 13. She doesn't go away. So if you leave this card on the field with the booster, then you don't make empty slots, and that's just a travesty, right? It's just sad. So yeah, otherwise Felty Rosa is kind of like, it's okay, it's nice fun deck. At least the Willista ride line gave it some more flavor, but apart from that, it's just not doing that great. Not doing that great. Moving on, we have, this is another Willista. Yeah, this is just Willista. All right, just pure Willista. This is kind of interesting. If you look at all the results in the past X months, there's really only been like 1 person that topped their locals with Willista, and that is Nekakura or Remy. And you know, I think one interesting thing I took from his deck is the Henrietta, right? Henrietta, which is just when this gets boosted, you can Soul Blast 1, and then for the battle, this gets power equal to the boosted unit's shield, right? So if you boost with a trigger, boosting unit's shield. So if you boost with a trigger, it'll get 15k. If you boost with an over trigger, you'll get 50k on top of the 5k that the trigger power, right? So that's pretty cool, right? You can hit a bunch of powers. Let's just quickly talk about what Willista does. You play gems, the gems go to soul, then Willista use those soul blast those gems to do things. You actually mill through your deck very quickly, and then you die. That's just it. How we actually remedy it, and the way to actually win with this deck is just to beat your opponent up as soon as possible. If you hit them to 6 ASAP, then you win, right? Easy, right? A bunch of the whole point revolves around how to hit numbers, right? And you want to attack as soon as possible. So we're running a bunch of these janky cards that normally would be running like set 1 overdress, but we're still running them now because they hit numbers. So this cat girl, right? When you play an order, she gets 2k for that turn. So she hits 10k. So if you're going second, you hit up, right? You hit into 10ks. It's nice. If you're hitting down, right? If you went first, then you can play 2 of her and you hit 20k. That's cool. And then because she's a 10k booster, when she boosts like a 13k, right? It's nice, right? She gets 10k by herself when you play the red gem. And then you can play another gem, so you can play the blue gem or another red gem. Yeah, so when you play this basically is 23 by itself, and then boosting with a 10k. That's cool. It's a 33. That's a good number to hit, right? Your blue gems also give power, and Willista also give power, so the power lines will be a bit different, but you know, you can work with that. And we also run 3 of this other card that is just when you boost with this card, it gets 2k. So it's like it's a 10k. It's a 10k boost, right? So yeah, if any combination of kind of this, like the trio and the cat girl, you know, you boost the cat girl and you played an order. Okay, it's 20k. 20 column. This boosting like the 13k. Yeah, it's a nice thing. But it's all about trying to hit better numbers as soon as possible, right? As soon as possible. Even like these boosting a trigger or a trigger boosting this, right? They hit 15, which in D is an okay number when you're against like a 10. So yeah, that's great. Also, one thing, the Henrietta and how it works. Willista's second effect is pretty good, right? You Soul Blast one of the gems, and then you can look at the top 5 cards and call 2 of them onto the field. They have to be empty though. They have to be empty, and then those units get 5k. But you have to discard the rest. So the problem is when you look at top 5 and you see like triggers and things like that. Normally you just discard them and feel bad, especially if it's the over trigger. But you know, when you see the over trigger now with list effect, right, just slam it down, and you know, suddenly if you put a Henrietta in front of that, good times, right? Good times. Just bear in mind though that again, you have to call it to empty regard circles. So if you clog your field up with like 1s and 1s, unfortunately, you're gonna have to play over something. But that's the deck. That's the deck. Or you can do some fun maths by using a bunch of your gems to like give power and try to hit the numbers. But you know, the whole focus of the deck: hit fast, hit good numbers, and then later on, you know, pump up a bunch of power and hope for the best, right? Yeah. The only weakness is you can't really get rid of this. Like the 1s will kind of clog up, but you gotta go fast, right? You gotta go fast. Just draw into the 2s and play over the 1s. That's it. Lastly, we have Kairi, and not really has much changed with Kairi, just because overall Kairi representation is also quite low. It's just not really much good technology going to this deck, because there just isn't any really much innovation that you can do, right? Most of these decks are just playing weird Kairi variants because the ride line itself, the Kairi ride line, is just not very good. This deck is pretty much just the same list that I showed you in the preliminary list, except I'm running like I think 2 more draws now, just a few more draws, because you want to draw into pieces, and that's it. All right, that's it. I saw a list running like a White Wing variant build where you try to just get one, where you try to like bind at 1, like an odd number, and then you go from there. But if you don't bind that odd number, then you just lose the game. So yeah, the Willista is still the most consistent. Again, the Kairi ride line not very good. Willista ride line pretty good, right? Drawing extra cards, getting extra soul, exactly what you need with this deck. This deck just tries to multi-attack your opponent. You can do up to 7 attacks if you do it properly. I did show the combo off in the previous video, so I will link it to that timestamp, and you can just check it out there on how to do those 7 attacks. It is kind of inconsistent. It's just really based on what you top deck. But at worst, you're doing something like 5 attacks anyway, which is pretty good, right? 5 attacks under Persona Ride again is nice. This is kind of similar to Felty Rose in a way, right? Doing multiple, like up to 5 attacks, but this has a slightly higher ceiling. Does require a bit more pieces, and yeah, I think it's up to you, like your flavor of the month. How do you like to multi-attack? Do you like to draw the drill girl here? You like to draw her, or do you like to just triggers, right? Get ghosts from triggers, right? So it's really up to you how you want to do it. But this and the Felty Rosa is pretty similar. Unfortunately, I think Kairi, Felty Rosa, and especially Willista are just like very incomplete decks in a way that just really aren't performing much. Strongest decks is Loro by far, then it'll be like Clarissa, and then Alestiel is not very strong, but it's quite complete, very easy to play. It's just not there, right? It's not tier 2, it's probably like something like tier 3. So yeah, it's like Loro tier 1, you know, probably Clarissa tier 2, and yeah, Alestiel tier 3, and these guys, last 3 are just kind of tier 4. But they're all kind of fun decks. And it just, I guess like it's kind of funny, like these last 3 decks are all using the Willista Rhine line. Because the Willista Rhine line is good, just the archetype itself is not very great. And overall, these decks are slightly more clunkier than the first ones that we've seen. And that's kind of it. So let me know what you guys think. If you're excited for Lyrical, I'm actually quite excited for Lyrical. I really want to play Loro, not because it is meta, but meta's pretty good. But you know, cat girls are the best. That's it. I guess dragon girls are okay too. Dragon girls are okay too. And look, I think Boucher like knows this, right? They're pretty in tune. That's why they are the strongest decks from the set. So not bad. Good marketing, right? Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye.